when the Savior...
Hey everybody, good to see all of you this morning. Sorry, I was back there chit-chatting with Ron. Didn't even realize what time it was. Looked down at my watch and said, oh, about time to get started. So we're in Ecclesiastes chapter 11. We're going to jump back into that here in just a minute. We've been studying this book for a couple months now and just trying to get the wisdom out of it, right? And try to appreciate. Sometimes it's not, you think about it and you assume if it's a wisdom book that the wisdom might just jump off the page at you, but it doesn't always do that. Sometimes the writer gets a little interesting in his way of trying to reach us. But all in all, the book's really got a centralized theme, right? If you're pursuing joy and happiness and peace and comfort and you're doing it all in earthly ways, you're going to be disappointed, right? Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all was vanity. If you seek and appreciate the things that this life has to bring, knowing that they came from God, then it does bring joy and benefit, right? And that's really the contrast that he makes throughout the book, and he just does it in different ways. And then he gives some advice as to how you handle the realities of life and what we should do as it relates to spending our time here in this sojourn. So we're going to continue that conversation and wrap up here the next few weeks this study of the book of Ecclesiastes. But before I jump back into chapter 11, if you would, let's bow our heads together. Let's share in a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, thank you for the benefit of life that you provide for us. We're so humbled and appreciative of your message, the truths of your word that are given to us through the Bible. Thank you for this wisdom from Ecclesiastes. Give us a heart that's receptive to it. Give us a desire to glean as much as we can from your knowledge and your will that's shared with us in this study. Strengthen us in every righteous endeavor. Help us to keep our eyes on you every day of our lives. And we pray all this through thy Son's name. Amen. So I would argue that he makes an interesting kind of contrast to the way he's been talking. I would call, and you've heard me say it multiple times, I call the writer a bit cynical, right? He sees the world from very dark viewpoint. He continually throughout the book reminds us all that someday you're what? Someday you're going to die. And if he says it once, he says it 100 times throughout the book, right? He comes back at that theme, reminding us that someday you're going to depart this life. And so keep your focus in the right directions. Make sure you're staying steadfast in your understanding of where your connectivities are and appreciate the time that you have, right? He uses that knowledge to advise us how to live while we have life and opportunity. But he gives a lot of warnings throughout the text, and he's not done yet. But here he kind of gives somewhat permission with qualifier. And so that's where we'll find ourselves in our study this morning. Look with me at verse 7 of Ecclesiastes chapter 11. He says, truly the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity. So his initial thought process is fair, right? It's nice to be out in the sunshine, right? And to be in the brightness of the sun and to enjoy the benefits of a nice sunny day. And it's okay, right? Truly, the light is sweet. And it's a pleasant thing for our eyes to behold the sun. It's not wrong to enjoy aspects of earthly living. And I don't know, obviously I can't get into the writer's mind here, but it's almost to me as if he's saying, listen, I've been pretty blunt about earthly pursuits and the dangers and the challenges and the difficulties and even harm that it can bring if that's your focus. If you're just continually focused on things that are earthly, they turn about to be empty for you. But here in the latter part of the writings, he comes and he says, listen, it is a sweet thing. It's a nice thing to be able to enjoy the light of the sun and the goodness that brings to us. It's not wrong to enjoy aspects of earthly life. I think we can make a mistake sometimes where we almost convince ourselves that in order to be spiritual, that we can't like anything about the earth. that if I really want to be pious and I really want to be spiritual and I really want to be dedicated and I want to just be all in on my service to God, that I've got to turn a blind eye to anything and everything that is of this earth. And I think he reminds us here that that's not what he's saying in this letter. There are maybe times where it may appear that that's what he's saying, but he's not. Truly, it's a pleasant thing to behold the sun. It's a pleasant thing to enjoy, so long as you what? Verse 8. Yeah. Understand there's going to be moments. It's not always going to be sunshine and roses, right? Remember that there's not always going to be that pleasantness of the sun, and there's warning, if you will, to not view the earth, because as soon as the darkness comes and you didn't expect it, what happens? Disappointed, or you get frustrated. So let's jump ahead a little bit here and then we'll backtrack. What's he saying in the next chapter, verse 1? Okay. Remember thy Creator in the days of thy youth. So he's transitioning. Verse 9 here in a minute, he's going to say what? Rejoice, O young man. So it seems pretty evident that he's turned his attention towards younger people, right? He's turned his attention in his writings to younger people here towards the latter end of this conversation, and he's telling younger people, recognize that the sun comes up some days and some days it doesn't, theoretically, right? Some days the light is easy to see, the sunshine is bright, and some days it's not. And if you don't have any respect or appreciation for the darkness, sometimes it can create a challenge. If you think about young people, and this isn't an insult to young people, but this is an adult class with young people in it. But as a parent, sometimes the temptation is to create nothing but what in our children's lives? Sunshine and roses, right? And we work really hard. If there's a rock that could trip them, what do? Yeah, we're always kicking every stone out of the way, and we're trying to create every single thing we can do to keep them from ever seeing anything that is bad or negative or doesn't go their way. And that, I believe, according to this writer, is a mistake. It's a mistake. Because they, I'm sorry, I'm watching this daughter and father right here reacting to this. But right, it's a mistake to always feel like it's not a mistake to create situations where they can see the sun. It's not a mistake for them to find ways to give them things that they can appreciate and enjoy and things that are pleasant. That's not wrong. That's verse 7, right? What's wrong, in a sense, is to feel like that's the way things should always be. And sometimes, as we're trying to help younger people appreciate that, sometimes you have to say what? No. Sometimes you have to say, no, I'll come back to that. Go ahead, Lori.
I've been there, I've done that, I know the outcome.
Yeah.
Listen to me, what I'm saying, and when they get to that point of their lives where you just got to let them make their own mistakes, they got to do it, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it is hard. And it's interesting because that's really the viewpoint of the writer, right? I think we've all concluded that the writer is an older man, 99.9% most likely Solomon, right? And so here's this older king who looks back on his life and sees a lot of regret. Here's an older king who looks back and sees moments where he probably failed his own family. He sees the handwriting on the wall of what's about to come. in relationship to Rehoboam and those who are not favorable to him, right? He looks back and he's using the wisdom that he actually gained. It's an interesting paradox in a sense, right? Because he said, I spent all this time and energy trying to figure out wisdom, right? I pursued it in everything. I pursued every type of wisdom and understanding that there is under the sun, and vanity of vanities. Bells go off as an older man, and he looks back. Now all of a sudden the wisdom starts coming to him, right?
God even blessed him with wisdom.
Right.
Beyond probably
What he would have had on his own. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. And so he's telling us, as somebody who has seen it, been there, witnessed it, seen the challenges that have come, here's my advice to you. Here's the wisdom that I'm imparting to you. Here's the challenge of that, though. How many of you remember being 16 years old? How well did you listen at 16 years old? Right? Right? That's the challenge here. Because here's all of this wisdom, right? Here's all of this understanding. Here's all of these things that will benefit you. Somebody who's experienced life in every way imaginable. If it existed, this writer pursued it. And he's trying to tell you, listen, you don't have to fall into the same pitfalls, the same hurts, the same harms, the same challenges that I did, because I'm telling you, here's the outcomes of that kind of pursuit. But it's not always easy to listen to wisdom when you're young. 16 is probably not much better than 18, and when we were 21, we thought we understood everything in the world. Right? And so there's an interesting contrast of challenge here. But let me share this with you as well. So have you ever said something to your child and they rolled their eyes at you, or they ho-hummed it, and then somebody else said the exact same thing, and they went, that sounds pretty good. That sounds right. What's your point, preacher? My point is one of the hard things about parenthood sometimes in some senses is that we've got to be willing to let our children gain wisdom from others. They hear, that voice all the time, and sometimes we can help each other. That's my point. Sometimes we can help each other in sharing wisdom of God with a younger generation by being willing to share and to teach and even not our own children necessarily who might build a little bit of a barrier, but maybe others who will listen, and maybe somebody else would listen to you differently, right? Share the wisdom with young folks, and don't always assume that you're going to get eye rolls and disengagement, because maybe they're just waiting for the right voice to help them understand some piece of wisdom. Deborah and I have talked about this over the years. One of my greatest fears as a preacher with a family is my kids grew up all those years and they basically heard one voice from the pulpit, from the Bible class, although they had children's classes when they were wee little, but right, they and at home and everywhere they turned, the same guy is telling them everything when it comes to that. And so it was helpful to have Bible class teachers and extra grandparents and right, lots of folks willing to share with them the wisdom of God and help them realize that it's okay to see the light of the sun and to appreciate the beauty of what God is providing, but don't forget that there are days of darkness as well. And it's quite possible. What word does he use at the end of verse 8? For they shall be many, right? They shall be many. one of the other things we have to do sometimes when we're trying to encourage younger people is to spend some time recognizing the dark days and not run away from that. My kids would tell you that they were they were drugged to funeral home after funeral home after funeral home, right? And things that maybe we think we should shelter our children from, but I think in some ways they know and understand the grieving process a lot differently, because from a young age they were witnessing it and experiencing it and understanding it. And all I'm trying to get us to appreciate is some applicable ways to think about what the writer here is saying. That, okay, enjoy the sunshine, but they're dark, and sometimes you got to say no to the sunshine, right? Sometimes we've got to deal with the realities that are in front of us. And if we're, again, back to the original thought process, if we're always saying yes, then we can create challenges. I'll be quiet and listen to others. Your thoughts, things you're thinking about.
That's the point of the entire end of this book. Here's the preacher. Here's Solomon, we don't believe. Telling these young people he's gone through this whole book of thing after thing after thing that can happen that gives you dark days. But here he is now giving everybody, young, old, in between, all this advice, all of this wisdom, so that we can live accordingly.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and go back to his earlier themes too. He says if a man lived many years and he finds joy throughout all of those years, but let him remember the dark days, because all that cometh is. Why is all that cometh vanity? Because all men end where? It's the same place, right? That's the messaging. Rich, poor, wise, foolish, king, nobleman, poor man, right? He over and over and over again throughout the writing, he reminds them, okay, rejoice in it, but go to the house of mourning, right? He said. Go to the house of mourning once in a while, because you'll learn something from that moment. You'll appreciate things from that moment. Go see what's happening in life at its end, because if you don't, the vanity of that end will come at you much harder and much more unexpectedly. And so appreciate the vanity that cometh to all men at the end, while you're walking through the daylight and the darkness that is life.
Everything that goes wrong in her life is God's fault. And this is kind of an instruction, These days are going to come.
And I think you're right, too, that we can make the mistake of giving people the impression that that's all there. If you just serve God, it'll be nothing but sunshine. And then the darkness hits, and then who gets the blame for it? Because they've been taught to think that God only does sunshine, and it can become a hardship.
Even back when these writings were done, there were people who thought, well, like Job, you've done something wrong, and that's God's punishing you. That's not life.
Yeah, there was for lack of a better word, a philosophy among them that if anything negative was going on, God must be dealing with you in some way. So you're dealing with that aspect as well. Yeah. Yep. Verse 9. So rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But how? Yeah, knowing that knowing the choices that you make ultimately will be judged by the Creator. Know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. Now, two schools of thought maybe on that process there, or thought in verse 9. some might say he's making a blanket condemnation of let your heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eye, but God's going to judge you for it. Maybe. But I don't know that's, to me, that's not what the writing seems to be. I think he's saying enjoy the sunshine. It's okay to appreciate the good that happens in life. We've seen other texts within the writings of Ecclesiastes that talk to that point, that it's okay to appreciate the good that God is doing. Just know that whatever it is you let your heart cheer you with, and whatever ways you choose to walk in, and whatever you let your heart engage itself in, God will ultimately judge that. And so be smart. Verse 10, remove sorrow from your heart, put away evil from your flesh, for childhood and youth are vanity. It's amazing how the writer is able to give warning and encouragement in the same breath, right? He's rejoice, O young man. And why rejoice, O young man, while you're young? Because eventually, if you live long enough, you're not going to feel young, right? Right? There are certain benefits to being young. There's it's obviously there's anomalies but it is a general rule. There's a benefit to youth. There's better health. There's stronger and more stable abilities. There are certain qualities to youthfulness that are beneficial. So he says, if you got something you enjoy, it's okay. Enjoy it. Pursue that. If you've got something that's of interest to you, that you see that intrigues you, he's not telling you, forbidding that. He's just simply saying, make wise choices, because God brings everything ultimately into judgment. And so while you're pursuing these things and you're walking in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, don't choose things that are going to create sorrow. Don't do things that are going to harm what? Harm yourself, your flesh. Notice he said that. He deals with both heart and physical here. He says, remove sorrow from your heart and keep evil away from your flesh. Because childhood and youth go away fast enough. Don't make choices that hasten it. I think that's the warning here. Don't make wise choices. The pursuits of your heart can create challenges, and those choices can be mental, spiritual, heart-related, right? I think and this isn't about a right or wrong, this is just an observation, but I think we're more highly aware now than maybe in generations before of those kinds of issues. But and all I'm trying to illustrate to you, they're not new, right? Problems of the heart, problems of the mind, problems of the way that we think and process things are not new problems. I think we might put a different or maybe a brighter light on them now than we once did. But the writer of Ecclesiastes is talking about that way back when. Don't do things that harm you inwardly. Don't do things that harm you outwardly, because youth goes away fast enough. And so why hasten it? And so be careful what you fill your mind with. Be careful what you put in your body. Be careful what you do with the life that God is blessing you with, right? The writer's just speaking from wisdom of the harm and things that he's seen folks do. And most likely he maybe himself has experienced when he pursued everything of madness and folly that he described earlier in the text. And so be careful, young person. That's who he's addressing. Be careful. The evil days come fast enough. The darkness will come fast enough. Don't add to what life already brings by purposely choosing things that harm us. And we've seen it. We've all know what that does, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that if they had an opportunity to speak what the Ecclesiastes writer is speaking here, they would probably tell you the same. To avoid the things that led them down a path that created harm. Not good. Your thoughts at the end of this text. Yeah, go ahead, Marlene.
God reminds us of the 3 R's here. Rejoice, remember, and remove.
Yeah.
Kind of puts the finale on the whole book.
Yeah, I think, Marlene, you're right. I think it's just like New Testament writer says, submit yourselves to God, resist the devil, he will flee from you, right? There's a contrast of action that has to take place in order for that to result. I think here he's doing the same thing. He's saying, listen, I want you to see the sunshine. I want you to appreciate the good days. I want you to see the gifts that God is blessing you with. But if you're adding sorrow to your heart, if you're not putting away evil from your flesh, it's going to be hard to see the good that God is actually trying to provide. And I see that here.
Usually think when I read this how your parents always tell you, don't grow up too fast, don't grow up too fast, because you're going to get the responsibility of adulthood and you should enjoy your youth as you have it.
Yeah. And you're right. And I suppose that growing up too fast, I mean, Sam was born a 52-year-old man, but anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, right? The poor choice of words, don't know another one. The adultness of life, right? It will come fast enough. Don't borrow into things that are going to speed that process up. It will come in its natural course, but if you're adding sorrow to your heart and you're not putting away evil from your body, you're going to speed that process up. And then you had his time and chance conversation, and that, sometimes life comes at you fast and you didn't choose it, you didn't ask for it, you didn't do anything, it just comes. And so it's an interesting piece of wisdom here. Any other thoughts out of that?
Where the girl's asking her dad about adult things, and he says to her, the train stops, they're on a train, and he does some sort of repair work, and he has his satchel with him, and he says, we'll talk about when we get off the train, will you carry that for me? And she tries to pick it up, it's heavy, she can just move it a couple feet. She's like, this is too heavy for me to move. He said, the things you're asking me about are too heavy, let me carry those until you're older, and then, I mean, it's a very good analogy.
Yeah, there's a process of time on at what depth do our children appreciate. They can experience what darkness is without having to experience the depth of that that may be better at a different time. Any other thoughts you may have had? Let's look at those questions real quick. We'll use them to review what we learned in chapter 11 and maybe take a breath into chapter 12, but most likely just come back to it Wednesday. So what did it mean to cast your bread upon the waters? We studied that at the very beginning of chapter 11. And we had a couple of thoughts that we shared about it. Okay, right. So one idea was that just cast, throw it out on the water, and regardless of whether, when or how it's going to return, just be willing to do that. And also the idea then that sometimes the benefit comes later. It comes later for that to make its way back to you. And ultimately, who's aiding that? God is aiding that process, right? How does the preacher encourage generosity despite uncertainty? Trust. Remember, he said, and I tried to change the text for those who weren't here. I said, give some to 6 and to 7, but that's not really what he said. He said, give some to 7 and some to 8. Everybody over 45 went, what? But anyway, or non-school teachers were like, what are they talking about? But anyway, right. So the seventh person, be generous. Go ahead and offer it, and don't think about what, because someday the challenge will be felt by you, and it might be beneficial to have 8 people that would want to help you in return than 7, right? So that was just this general life lesson that he shared at that moment. What lessons are drawn from the unpredictability of life? If you don't know what's around the next corner, then just what? Yeah, right. Just experience what God is providing and doing for me in today. Respect the future that is to come, right? Appreciate the eternity that's on there, but we can't control all those variables. And so just appreciate the moment sometime that we're in. Why is it important to enjoy youth while remembering God's judgment? Yeah, it goes fast, and right. I want to make wise choices, right? Because judgment's coming to all those decisions. And then, how might this chapter inspire a balanced approach to planning and living? Yeah. So I'm keenly aware that the vanity of vanities comes to everybody at the end, right? So I know there's an end, and so I'm balancing today's decisions while I'm still enjoying the sun. I'm removing the sorrow and the right. I'm doing so I'm balancing the idea of knowing the vanity that comes at the end, that comes to all men, and how I ought to be making wise choices in the moment that I'm in. Okay, so bridge real quick, and again we've got like 2.5 minutes here, but so after all that, then he says, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. Think with me for a minute, and again, we don't have time to dive too far into the deep end of the pool here for a minute, but let me reread this verse how I think many of us read this. I think sometimes we remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in him. Right? Isn't that kind of the way we teach that text? Be careful what you do as a young person, because you may forget God. But is that what he said? It's not really what he said. He said, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. The question for Wednesday is, what's the them? What's the them? Now, our bell just rang, so anybody quick, that's King James on the screen. Anybody got a different word there? And I'm just curious. I looked a little briefly, but I'm just curious. Nothing? Everybody got them? Think about that. Come back and let's talk about that Wednesday, because I'll be honest with you. I guarantee you there have been lots of times I've preached this text, and I've squarely looked into the eyes of young people, and I said, listen, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, because if you don't remember him now, you'll forget him later. And I'm just curious, is that what the text is saying or not? And just dig. Go home and dig and think about what is the writer actually saying here in this text. And don't just presume that this is what he's saying. See if what we can really gain from that, and see if maybe we haven't misread it in our viewpoint of that text. And maybe, Lord willing, Wednesday we can talk about that.
Somewhere the sun is shining, somewhere the songbirds dwell. Hush then thy sad repining, God lives and all is well. Somewhere, beautiful isle of somewhere, land of the true, where we live anew. Beautiful isle of somewhere. Lord, for your glory, we sing your praises. We magnify your holy name. All for your glory, Lord, we bring blessing. We seek to honor you all of our days. We lift our hands, we lift our praise to you. We worship all you are in spirit and truth. We give our hearts, we lift our lives to you. We offer all we are for the glory of you. Almighty Father, we are your children. You have been faithful to your own. Lord, for your glory, we have been chosen. We lay down all we have here at your throne. We lift our hands, we lift our praise to you. We worship all you are in spirit and truth. We give our hearts, we lift our lives to you. We offer all we are, we offer all we have, we offer all